Julie mentioned that she was going to try to end the meeting early tonight so everybody could get home and watch the Democratic National Convention. And one of the cardinal rules of public speaking is to know your audience. So I'm a little concerned that I might not know this audience. So let me start by asking a question. Is there anybody here who loves the Founding Fathers and the United States of America? Okay, it's pretty unanimous. I think I have the right talk for this audience, and good. When I was a child, I was a pretty avid reader, and one of my favorite topics was history, particularly the era of the American Revolution. And even though my parents didn't speak much about politics or discuss history in the household, I developed a real affinity for the Founding Fathers and regarded them as heroes. In fact, I thought that Revolutionary era was such a romantic period, an exciting period of history, that I sometimes wished that I had been born 200 years earlier so I could have been a part of that historic era. Sometimes it's said you got to be careful what you ask for, because now that I'm an adult, I find that my government is threatening my freedoms just as much as the government threatened the freedoms of the colonists at the time of the American Revolution. And I must admit, I don't find it quite as romantic and exciting as I thought it might be. But those threats to our liberties are what gave birth to the Tea Party movement. For decades, no matter which political party has been in control, government has continued to grow. The deficits are getting monstrous, they're out of control. Regulations keep being piled on top of regulations, limiting what both businesses and individuals can do. And through all of this, our individual liberties are consistently and steadily eroded. And as some of the commenters pointed out earlier, this isn't limited just to the Democrats. The Republicans are just as responsible. For example, Richard Nixon gave us the Environmental Protection Agency. Bush Sr. gave us the Americans with Disability Act. And of course, the Democrats have done their fair share as well with the Department of Education, with Jimmy Carter, and the current resident of the White House giving us Obamacare. In fact, every president since FDR has either created a new welfare program or expanded an existing program, and that's every single president, including Ronald Reagan. So no matter which party is sitting in the White House, no matter which party is controlling Congress, government continues to grow. And the reason is because both of the major political parties share a similar basic idea. Most politicians believe that physical force, that government coercion, is the proper way to solve social problems. And by coercion or physical force, I mean politicians threatening you with jail or monetary fines if you don't act the way they want you to act. So if you don't follow the laws that they've set up, designed to make you act as they think appropriate, they will throw you in jail or take your money. Now, they offer all kinds of justifications for these schemes to make you act to do their bidding. They might say that it's to serve the public interest, to serve the common good. Sometimes they'll say that we need to help the poor, the needy, the elderly. Sometimes it's some kind of plan to benefit the children. But no matter how they argue, no matter what their justification is, it all comes down to the ends justify the means. They believe that if their plan is noble, or allegedly noble, then they are justified to force you to act contrary to your own judgment. They believe that they're justified to force you to act the way they think is appropriate, regardless of your values, regardless of your desires, regardless of what you want in your life. And this is true of both political parties. Now, if your neighbor came to you, let's say your neighbor comes to you and says a little girl down the street needs an operation, but her family can't afford to pay for it. Would you like to donate some money to their cause? Well, I don't think anybody would have a problem with that. If you have the means and you like the family or whatever, you're free to decide whether to donate or not. That's completely your discretion. But what if your neighbor comes to you and he's waving a gun in your face and said you're going to donate to their cause? a completely different situation. You're no longer free to act on your own judgment. You're no longer free to decide if you will or will not donate. You're forced to donate. And a forced donation is not a donation, it's theft. Now we recognize that if your neighbor does this, it is theft, it's immoral, it's a crime. Why does that change if the government does it? Why does it change if the tax man comes and takes your money to pay for that little girl's operation? In fact, there's nothing different. It's equally immoral if the government does it as well. My point is that force, physical force, forcing individuals to act contrary to their own judgment is immoral regardless who does it, whether it's a private citizen or whether it's a government agent. It's immoral to initiate force against citizens. But that's what both political parties advocate over and over again. Now, if the Tea Parties want to enjoy long-term success and influence the course of America, and from the comments I heard tonight, that's certainly what you're attempting to do, then this idea of force as a solution to social problems has to be rejected, has to completely be rejected. Otherwise, the Tea Parties are just going to be like the forgotten parties of the past, the Bull Moose Party or the Greenback Party. Those were actually parties 120, 130 years ago, but nobody hears of them anymore because they were short-lived. If the Tea Party wants to have a long-term impact, then it has to offer ideas that are different from the Democrats and Republicans. And fundamentally, that means rejecting the idea that force is a proper solution to social problems. But more importantly, the Tea Parties must identify, embrace, and defend the founding principle of this nation. And that principle is individual rights. Now, we hear lots of talk about rights. Even the Democrats sometimes talk about rights. But what are rights? And it's easy to say I'm in favor of rights, but what does that mean? Well, the Declaration tells us what the Founding Fathers meant by rights. The Declaration states that all men are endowed with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, we've all heard these words, probably since we were children. We've probably said them many times. But what do they really mean? What does that mean to us in our daily lives? How does that translate? Well, the right to life means you own your life. I own my life. Every individual owns his life. It means that your life is yours to live as you choose, without interference from other people. The right to liberty means the right to take the actions that you believe are best for your life, free from interference from other people. The right to the pursuit of happiness means the freedom to choose the goals and values that will bring you satisfaction and joy and happiness in your life. Now, all rights pertain to action. They mean the freedom to act in the pursuit of your life for the values that you want. And the only way that rights can be violated is through physical force. If somebody ties you up, or waves a gun in your face, or threatens to do you harm, they can prevent you from acting according to your own judgment. They can prevent you from acting and living your life the way that you choose. So it's physical force, and only physical force, that can prevent us from exercising our rights, that can violate our rights. Freedom, then, is the absence of force. It's the absence of coercion. Now, the Democrats would have us believe, the Democrats would disagree with my view of rights, particularly the Democrats. There are probably some Republicans, too. But the people on the left definitely disagree with my view of rights. They think that rights pertain to objects. That you have a right to, for example, an education, housing, a job, health care. They believe that the fact that you're born, you have a right to these objects. Now, if that were true, what would that mean? If we really had a right to education, what would that mean? I'll use education as an example. If there's a right to an education, that means if you don't provide an education for, say, your neighbor's children, you're violating their rights. Since they have a right and you're not providing that, you're violating their rights. So what's the government do? The government steps in and helps them exercise their rights by taking your money to provide them an education. So your money is taken from you without your consent for a purpose you may or may not agree with to fulfill this alleged right on the part of children. So when there's this idea of a right to an object, what actually happens is the actual rights of individuals are violated. Your rights are violated when money is taken from you by force for purposes that you don't consent to. And as Ayn Rand once pointed out, any alleged right that requires a violation of an actual right is not and cannot be a right. So this idea of a right to an object is absurd, and it leads to the violation of actual rights.